Oh, I think we are now live. We should be getting some folks joining us. Here we go. Hello, everybody. As you are tuning in, thank you for joining us. Wow, a lot of people are cranking it in. As you come in, please hit the heart button on your screen wherever it is appearing. I will not traffic cop it because I have no idea where it's appearing on people's screens. And as you are joining us, if you're coming from my world, please make sure you are subscribed to and following Adam Klasfeld at All Rise News. And for those of you that are joining from Adam's world, if you're not following me or subscribing to me, I would love your support here at Substack. And I am just thrilled. We have actually, Adam, we have somebody from Milwaukee, Ellen Carr, in the chat. I'm a Milwaukeean. Is that how you pronounce it, Ellen? I'm a Milwaukeean, and I am glad you are covering this. I am glad Adam is covering this as well. As I teased last week when Adam and I were together last, Adam going to Milwaukee is just one of the incredible benefits you get from subscribing and supporting Adam at All Rise News to get him where the action is happening so we don't get it filtered through other people. We get it straight from the horse's mouth. So we're grateful that Adam is hanging out with us this evening. Thank you, Jenna Lara. I don't know how to pronounce your name. You don't have to miss me on MSNBC because I am here. And I'm also at YouTube at Katie Phang News. So, Adam, without further ado, what happened today on day one of Judge Hannah Dugan's trial in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, from where you are reporting directly?
Well, thank you very much for the generous introduction, Katie, to start things off. But I'll say that quite a bit. We went through opening statements and we went through 3 witnesses. And what happened today is the jurors got the broad scope, the 1,000-foot view of what the trial is going to be about. Now, before trial even began, the kind of national conversation about her trial, that it's falling in this Trump 2.0 era where there are now immigration arrests inside courthouses. The policy issues of that are going to be beside the point at trial, but we got glimpses of that, and I'll return to that later. What this is going to be about, and this is because Judge Hannah Dugan, has agreed before trial she's not pursuing a jury nullification defense. She's saying she didn't do it. And what it is helping, allegedly, a undocumented immigrant in her courtroom evade arrest on April 18th of this year. And a couple of things that the jury, that her defense team wanted to make sure that the jury was left with. One was a measurement, and you're going to hear it a lot throughout the trial. It is 10 feet, 11 inches. That is the distance between the courtroom's side door and the courtroom's main entrance. Now, here's the crux of the government's case. They say that they have audio that the jury listened to and video supporting this, that when she saw that 5 federal agents showed up in her courtroom to arrest a defendant, she was angry. She spoke to her court reporter about how to escort the defendant, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, through the jury door that would go into a non-public sort of hidden hallway. And inside this hallway, there were 2 places he could have gone.
Okay.
He could have gone to a stairwell that would have absolutely eluded federal agents had he chosen that door. He did not. He went to a side door that emptied right into the public hallway. And because of that, when he emerged from that doorway, he was 10 feet, 11 inches away from had he gone out the other entrance. And Judge Hannah Dugan's defense team says that's just as they planned it because she was the one escorting Flores Ruiz and his lawyer in the hallway. And that much is undisputed. She was the one who was in the hallway gesturing where they would go. So that's the measurement. You're going to hear that measurement throughout the trial. 10 feet, 11 inches is what this case is about. And the defense attorney, lead defense attorney for Judge Dugan, Stephen Biskupich, said that that's a length that is even shorter than the jury box. It was an evocative statement, and he left them with a very memorable image, a very memorable line. And in the backdrop, as I said a little bit earlier, this is falling in the national conversation about what had formerly been protected spaces. That if ICE is showing up, if 5 agents are showing up to a courthouse to arrest a defendant, will that drive defendants underground? Will that drive victims underground in the courthouse? And that was a policy that the defense team said sparked anger, confusion, and paranoia inside the courthouse. So a couple of key points on this topic. We saw through the defense opening statements that judges were angry about this. They were talking with each other about this. They were confused. They wanted to get information about how do they deal with immigration enforcement in their courthouse. They sought advice from the chief judge, who differentiated between, for example, an administrative warrant, that is an ICE internal agency warrant, and a judge-signed warrant. And the chief judge's advice was that court personnel do not necessarily need to comply with an administrative warrant, an ICE warrant. So this is a key point that you're going to hear as this case goes on, because Judge Dugan argues that she was just following the advice of the chief judge when prosecutors say she, quote unquote, quote, falsely instructed them an administrative warrant wasn't good enough. She said she was stating the law that was brought down by the chief judge of Milwaukee County Circuit Court. And so these are going to be real borderlines, the kind of where the parties are going to duke it out. At the end of day one, we've heard testimony by 3 government witnesses. They tried to make it sound very routine to have immigration arrests inside courthouses. They said that, oh, this is a way to effectuate a safe arrest because when you enter a courthouse, you have to go through security screening.
That's bullshit, but go on, sorry.
Oh, absolutely. But
that's bullshit.
But the jury is hearing it again and again and again, and the government is making sure that they hear it again and again and again. Now, that took a ding, to your point, Katie, that got dinged in the first witness testimony. FBI agent Aaron Luker, who was saying that this was a routine sort of thing.
Yeah.
When impressed on cross-examination by Dugan's lawyer, she was asked how many times she had been on the 6th floor of this courthouse before. She said 0 times. She doesn't usually do enforcement in state courthouses. So that's, to your point, they're going to, the defense is really going to hammer home how unusual this was. The anger, confusion, and paranoia, in the words of the lead defense attorney in opening statements, that this caused, how they got advice from the chief judge, and the chief judge differentiated between an administrative warrant and a judicial warrant, and that she followed that advice. But ultimately, what this will come down to, or what it might come down to, is what happened in that hidden hallway. Was she, as prosecutors allege, trying to find a way for Flores Ruiz to escape and evade the federal agents who were waiting for him inside the hallway? Or was she steering him to that very hallway where he did, in fact, and this is undisputed, walk past those federal agents en route to an elevator where he actually shared an elevator with a federal agent? They went outside. We saw a lot of footage of the rainy day when Flores Ruiz was arrested. And on that rainy day, apparently, Flores Ruiz, when it became clear he was going to be arrested, started sprinting away from the officer. There was a foot chase. He was caught. They're trying to blame all of this sequence of events on Judge Dugan. And what the defense is saying is, why are you blaming what happened outside the courthouse on her? this defendant was sent right next to your agents who let him pass, shared an elevator with him, and then this sequence of events happened in a place that is absolutely beyond her control.
So, ICE thinks all brown people look the same, so I'm kind of like not surprised. But can we break down a little bit the chronology of what happened, Adam, so that people can understand a little bit better in their mind the visualization of how this all happened, the choreography of it? Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure. Well, the video has not yet been publicly released, and so this was very much. If you looked at the complaint, and there's a public complaint right on the docket, anyone here can read it. One of the things that had people scratching their head even before trial began was that it seemed that prosecutors were accusing Dugan of ushering this defendant through the jury door into the public hallway.
Yeah.
So, what many commentators I spoke to, from the very start of this, was how is this evading arrest? He went from the jury door to the hallway. What became more clear with trial and also a little bit clearer with limine motions was in in between these two areas, from the jury door to the public hallway, was a restricted area, sort of hidden hallway. And there were two ways that things could have gone. He could
Yeah.
have made a turn into a stairwell that would have probably resulted in him avoiding being arrested by the agents who were waiting in the sixth floor hallway. But he did not. He ultimately went through the side door. And the defense says that's by design. If they believe the defense, or if they believe that there is reasonable doubt that the defense is correct on that, because Judge Dugan herself escorted them part of the way.
So, to be clear, did the 5 ICE agents that showed up in Judge Dugan's courthouse, did they have an administrative warrant or did they have a judge-signed warrant? Which one did they have?
They had an administrative warrant.
Okay. And based upon the advice provided by the chief judge that is overseeing, I'll use that verb, overseeing Judge Dugan's courtroom, right? Even though she's the ultimate arbiter of what happens in her courtroom, according to the chief judge, the ICE agents were required to have a judicially signed warrant in order to effectuate their arrest in her courtroom, correct?
That's exactly right. That was advice from the chief judge that was laid out in an email that the defense highlighted today. And that's what Dugan says. She had advised the agents, said, go to the chief judge, that you need a judicial warrant, a judge signed warrant.
Did those 5 agents then exit her courtroom after she told them to go take it up with the chief judge?
So some of them, I believe, and I'm going to consult my notes here, that there were not all 5. There was at least one agent who is testifying now. The arresting agent, Agent Baker, says that he was not instructed by Dugan to speak to the chief judge, but there was a sort of conversation about how to deal with this instruction by Judge Dugan. The government is alleging that that was a diversion to get them out of the area and to get the defendant in the side door.
But the reality is some agents remained in the courtroom, correct?
Not in the courtroom, Katie, outside the courtroom.
Just outside the courtroom. Okay.
Correct.
And then this area so then Judge Dugan with Mr. Flores Ruiz and Mr. Flores Ruiz's attorney enter the jury room, which is on a side of the courtroom, right?
It's, yes, in the back of the courtroom. So
the back of the courtroom.
Right.
And
so
then
if you think
they
about
exit the jury room into this private hallway, right?
the jury door, essentially, it's not a jury room per se. So if you visualize the courtroom and
Okay.
there's the jury box, if the jury leaves toward the bench, there's a door that goes into a hallway.
So is that how they enter the courtroom? Is that how they go into the jury
Correct.
box? So, for
Correct.
example, the jurors that sat there today would have been led through a jury door to go into the jury box, ostensibly.
It's a different court. So Judge Dugan is a county. So in that the courtroom where today's trial panned out, no, but inside Milwaukee County Circuit Court, they would have gone through the jury door into this restricted hallway.
And the restricted hallway is one that the judges can use and the jurors can use ostensibly. That's what it sounds like, right?
Correct. Correct.
So Judge Dugan, Mr. Flores Ruiz, and the lawyer enter the private hallway together, right?
So yes, Judge Dugan, Mr. Flores Ruiz, and his attorney, Mercedes de la Rosa, enter into that hallway.
And within the hallway, there's two ways of leaving that private hallway. One is to go down a stairwell that would lead to, again, ostensibly an exit out of the courthouse, wherein Mr. Flores Ruiz maybe would never have made contact with the ICE agents, right?
Correct.
And then the other way to leave that private stairwell would be you would exit this you would exit the private hallway through a side door that feeds into the public area, like a public hallway or public area, right?
That is correct. And they choose that door.
In other words, if Judge Dugan was truly trying to effectuate and help the evasion of arrest for Mr. Flores Ruiz, she would have put them down the stairwell that would led them to exit the courthouse without being, again, ostensibly not getting any attention or seen by ICE agents, right?
And that is the heart of the defense case, Katie. Now, there's one piece of evidence that I expect that the prosecution is going to bring up, and they started the case with it, is that there's a reference in an audio conversation between Judge Dugan and a court reporter where there's a reference to the wrong door.
Okay.
Avoiding them going through the wrong door. But once again, what the defense brings up and what the defense is highlighting here is Judge Dugan herself gestured to where they should walk, and where they ultimately walked was that side door, which was a public hallway.
Okay. And again, if I'm Judge Dugan, if I have either conflicting information or, more definitively, instructions from a chief judge that if you don't have a judicially signed warrant or judge-signed warrant, this is not a valid arrest warrant to effectuate this man's arrest, then it should end up being irrelevant whether or not she motions or whatever, or gestures through a door or not to a private hallway. At the end of the day, she didn't send him down the private stairwell, right? She ended up guiding them through that private hallway into that door where they exit into a public common area, right?
Right. There are two key defenses here that you pointed out, Katie. One of them is that she was gesturing them to the side door. The other defense is that is a legal one. It's that she was following the instructions of the chief judge.
Which and so, Adam, ultimately, to add insult to injury for the government, Mr. Flores Ruiz walks past ICE agents in the public common area, gets into an elevator with an ICE agent, and I don't know what floor Judge Dugan's courtroom is on in this state courthouse, but rides in an elevator long enough. And was there any explanation provided by the government during their opening statements? Because it was approximately 90 minutes, right, total for the openings in this case?
Right. Between the two parties, yeah.
Okay,
So it was
so they had time to explain. Why didn't they arrest Mr. Flores Ruiz in the common public area outside of the private hallway or inside the elevator?
And that is not at all clear after day one of this. And I expect, for example, right now, the day has ended with testimony by Jeffrey Baker, who was the arresting agent.
Mm-hmm.
He was detailed to enforcement and removal operations from the FBI, that detailed from the FBI to ERO in order to effectuate the arrest.
Yeah.
And I can expect tomorrow, on Tuesday, during cross-examination, he's going to be asked, why didn't you arrest Flores Ruiz earlier? You said the plan was to arrest him in the hallway. There's video of you with him in that hallway. There's also footage of people, it's undisputed that Flores Ruiz was in an elevator with an agent. Why didn't the arrest happen then?
Judge Dugan is charged with the offense of obstructing the agents from being able to do their job.
That's correct. It's so she's facing two charges.
Okay.
One is the one that you mentioned, Katie, is the felony charge. It's the top charge. It's one with a maximum 6-year sentence. And then there's a misdemeanor charge of trying to conceal someone to avoid an arrest. So those
But
are the
did the ICE agents, Adam, while they were inside the courtroom and she was like, take it up with the chief judge, whatever, were there any ICE agents, to the best of your knowledge, based on opening so far and the existing evidence that's been publicly released? Did any ICE agent witness her, as in Judge Dugan, walk with Mr. Flores Ruiz and his counsel into the private hallway?
I don't believe so because they were never in the courtroom. So
Okay.
to be clear, they were waiting outside in the public hallway. That at the end of this hearing, that they would be there when Flores Ruiz came out. Um, but
Understood.
they but they didn't enter the courtroom. So when she directed them through the jury door that went into a restricted hallway, they eventually he became visible to them. He and his lawyer became visible to them and could be seen on surveillance footage after they exited through that side door.
I mean, the fact that there's the stairwell from that restricted hallway that would have really helped Mr. Flores Ruiz leave or escape. We'll use the word escape. And it wasn't used, wasn't taken, wasn't done. I mean, I feel like that in and of itself would negate any criminal intent, because I want to remind everybody who's tuning in, this is not a civil case. This is a criminal prosecution. Putting aside whether she's a judge or not, the criminal prosecution rests on the prosecution, the government, the state, the people of whatever, right? They have to be able to prove intent. You have to have a specific intent to violate a crime or an offense, right? Or to commit a crime or to violate a statute or a law. If she really wanted to violate that law, Adam, why she would have just shoved him down the private stairwell and he would have gone into the rainy day, peace out, and never to be seen again, right?
Right, right. And that's the key argument. It's a why would Judge Dugan have escorted them through that hallway when she could just walk a few more steps with them, gesture to the door that was supposed to be the escape route, and do that? What actually happened is they entered a public hallway, and the two of the five agents who were going to arrest him saw him there, and he literally walked past one of them. That was conceded by the first government witness. And on the policy side of it, because again, this falls amid national debate of why are we sending immigration agents into courthouses to arrest people? What does this do as a policy matter? Does it drive people underground? I want to read from an email that became public during the defense's opening statements,
Sure.
because on the day of Flores Ruiz's arrest, there was an email written by Judge Dugan, and it said this: I have seen in my court more people not showing up for court. I've had two immigration attorneys asking me just today about what protocols are in place. So, what the judges in that circuit were so concerned about is that this practice, which the government is claiming was routine, is something that is driving people underground. It ultimately makes it harder for immigration agents to effectuate arrests because perhaps victims don't engage with the legal system. Perhaps criminal defendants facing charges, and Flores Ruiz was charged with domestic violence.
That's what
So
I wanted to ask you, Adam. He was out of custody. He was out on bond, right? And it wasn't like he was in custody and they brought him from a correction facility to go face trial or face his court hearing. He was actually out on bond, and he showed up voluntarily to court for his court hearing, right?
right. I mean, it was a misdemeanor case against him, and something important to note about Judge Dugan: she presides over misdemeanor cases, and this is an important detail because one of the things that came out during one of the witnesses' testimony was that the charges against him detailed in immigration records were misstated. They say that the top charge against him was strangulation and suffocation.
Okay.
Wasn't the case. They got
But that's a felony though, isn't it?
that, and he wasn't charged with that.
Yeah,
More
yeah,
to the point.
yeah.
And so there were three misdemeanor charges. And on that issue, the I do want to emphasize again, this was a domestic violence case in her court.
Mm.
What considerations does that have for the victims of domestic violence if there's not interacting with the courts, if victims are
Horrible.
afraid to report domestic abuse
It's
cases?
a chilling effect. Listen, as somebody who prosecuted these cases, it was hard enough to get a domestic violence victim in any immigration status scenario to want to prosecute, to follow through with prosecution, right? Can you imagine if you're the victim and you see and you hear and you witness and you read and everything that ICE is going to show up in court? I mean, yeah, they'll deport you even if you're the victim of a crime. So even though you shouldn't be, because you really shouldn't, but they don't give asylum or status forgiveness anymore at this point, right? So,
Right. And that was part of the anger, confusion, and paranoia of the judges, in the words of the defense team. And that's the part that really talks about the bigger picture of this case. You know, it was mentioned by one of the supporters of Judge Dugan outside, pointed out that today is Bill of Rights Day. And that
hmm.
the first day of Judge Dugan's trial is on Bill of Rights Day. And so excuse me. So the kind of broader context here is the toll of this immigration enforcement policy of going to protected spaces like reportedly churches, courthouses. It's a chilling effect of access to the courtroom.
So, Adam, I read somewhere that the government has proposed on its witness list for trial 25 possible witnesses for its case in chief.
That's correct. And we're only 3 in, and we're
What the
not
hell
even
do they
one
need
third.
25 people to do this?
Well, they're really seeing it very kind of
Overkill.
like this encyclopedic, where were you in the courtroom when this was going down? They're going to get one of the key anticipated witnesses is another judge who was in the hallway with Judge Dugan. They want to call uh, the victim's witness. I believe some possible victims. You know, the full. I should emphasize now, the full witness list isn't public. However,
Oh,
but the victims specialist, the person who works and engages with victims, is a possible witness. And we'll see here. We know that the trial is only supposed to last 4 days, and we're only 3 witnesses in, so maybe they'll trim it down the line.
can you, and thank you so much for this incredibly detailed factual walkthrough, Adam. Can you give us a little bit of color of the energy inside the courtroom today? The presiding judge, Judge Dugan. Like, can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, well, Judge Edelman runs a pretty tight ship. We had a 45-minute lunch break and started right after.
Sure.
I would say that this is a very engaged jury. We had a during opening statements, they were very alert. They were very
Were they taking notes?
uh, I didn't personally witness a lot of note taking
Mm,
during opening statements, but I did see them engage. I think
okay.
especially the detail about the measurement at the heart of the defense case, 10 feet 11 inches, the space between the side door and the main door. The jurors really seemed to engage with that. I would say
It's
that.
catchy. It's good. Thematically, it's very good for the
And
defense.
and I would say that Judge Dugan herself appeared to be in good spirits. She was sitting between both of her lawyers. Um, you
What a
know,
travesty to have a judge sitting in criminal court for this is just such overreach. It's truly a separation of powers issue too, right? This whole executive overreach into the judiciary, right?
right, right. I mean, it's the when I spoke with local activists here, they were talking about the seeing the sight of Judge Dugan purple
Mm,
into, and it's unusual. I mean, you can attest to this, Katie. In federal court, you do not see perp walks of defendants, and
no.
they're making an example of her. They're trying to parade a judge, and that this is an example of Trump's attacks on the judiciary resulting in criminal prosecution.
Adam, you said something interesting at the beginning of our Substack Live, which was the defense is not pursuing a jury nullification defense, meaning they are not actively pursuing this idea that the jury should just, find her not guilty because even if the elements of the crimes are met by the government, they just don't want to find her guilty. It doesn't mean that that's not going to happen. Let me be very clear, right,
Right.
Adam? Like, let me be very clear. Um, Before I get to my next question, I apologize for going off track a little bit. Was there any public discussion about plea negotiations where something was offered to Judge Dugan and she rejected it to go to trial? Is there any conversation about that?
Not in court, but yes, that did happen. That was reported in the local press as soon as the new U.S. attorney for this district took his post. He had announced that there was an offer that was made, and that she rejected it. She is fighting the charges at trial.
And so, I guess my next question is this: is the jury going to know, and maybe they've already known this, that ultimately Mr. Flores Ruiz, as you have documented and reported, tried to take off, was caught, detained, and he's since been deported. So he's not even here in the United States anymore. Did the jury hear that during opening statements?
They did hear that he has been deported. What they did not hear is that after his deportation, DHS couldn't avoid taking a victory lap, and they sent out a press release. In their press release, in they completely disregarded Judge Dugan's presumption of innocence. They wrote in the press release that she had helped him evade arrest, and this is part of a national trend. We saw this in the case of LaMonica MacGyver in New Jersey, where they declared her guilty long before her trial. So yes, we talked about the 25-person witness list. One person who is not going to be on that witness list is Mr. Flores Ruiz, because he is now back in Mexico.
What about his lawyer, Mercedes, that you mentioned? Did the government list her?
So I should be clear, there is no public witness
Yeah.
list, but
Uh-huh.
he loomed large over the opening statements. She is the person who was walking with him in the hallway. She was said to have been pretty new to the public defender's office when this all started. So who knows? We will see. But it's going to be a parade of court personnel, a parade of law enforcement officers if they get anywhere near the 25-person witness list that they were previewing before trial.
Well, just like bringing 5 ICE agents to arrest this man, it's overkill to have 25. I am curious and we are so grateful, Adam, that you are literally there. And that is why, folks, I said this at the beginning of the live. If you are not subscribing to Adam Klasfeld on All Rise News, you are missing out, because this is the type of on the ground, direct, in person, first person reporting that you get from Adam, the analysis. He's so gracious to spend his time with me. He's in Milwaukee in that amazing hotel, hanging out with us right now on Substack. Adam, I'm curious, because even though it doesn't ever get explicitly discussed at all in the courthouse or the courtroom during this trial, this trial is taking place on December 15th, on the eve of the end of the year, before it's Christmas. And as a trial lawyer, we always try to avoid Christmas. As a prosecutor, we wanted to avoid the holidays because there was a concern as a prosecutor that juries would find you not guilty so you could go home for Christmas, that kind of energy, right? As a defense attorney, we were also like, maybe we should go to trial at Christmas because maybe people will be a little bit more generous, right, in the way that they view things. But putting aside the holidays, this is taking place at a time where the Department of Justice has failed to re-indict Tish James, right? 3 times they haven't been able to make it stick. James Comey's indictment thrown out. Alina Habba forced to resign. Julianne Murray, the U.S. attorney in Delaware, self-resigning because she saw the writing on the wall. We've had multiple U.S. attorneys that have been forced out because they've been invalidly appointed. We've seen Judge Dugan. We've seen LaMonica MacGyver, James Comey. I mean, we've seen a series of political prosecutions and persecutions. And I'm wondering how all of that's going to fit, I think, in thematically with what we're seeing in this trial.
Right, right. I mean, it's probably more what surrounds this case, right? It's why immediately after Judge Dugan's arrest, we had hundreds of protesters go to the courthouse, which is about a block away from where I am right now, and they have been there in force. They were there for the start of voir dire and jury selection. They were there this morning as well, because this is coming amid the backdrop of the use of the Justice Department to go after Trump's enemies. It's falling amid the use of the Justice Department and to enact the hardline immigration agenda, and to essentially threaten and prosecute people who stand in the way of that agenda. So I think it absolutely surrounds this trial and is part of why we've seen the sort of response that we've had in front of the courtroom at every significant turn.
Can you refresh my recollection and those that are tuning into this live? What's the exposure for Judge Dugan should she be found guilty and convicted?
At the maximum end, it's a potential 6-year sentence. Now, that would probably never occur in a sort of first time offense, even if she were convicted, even if the jury did not find reasonable doubt here. The For a first time offense or anything like that, I don't think it would be anywhere near 6 years. But that's what the government charged: a felony count, a 6-year count, because of her actions to control her courtroom.
Yeah, but look, even if she doesn't get the jail time or prison time, Adam, you and I both know if she's found guilty, she's not going to keep her job. She won't be able to be a
Right.
judge, right? And that'll affect you even as a lawyer in terms of your
Absolutely.
license status. So, I mean, this is not, even though we may roll our eyes at the stupidity, the futility of this prosecution, it's just a sober reminder, though, if I can be on my soapbox for a hot second. These are criminal cases that are being brought against perceived political opponents and enemies of this administration, Republicans, felon Trump. These have very real implications for people, either liberty being at stake, employment. You can't do these stuff for example, you have to actually pay for your legal fees. So it's not like people are doing this stuff for free. Like this is expensive and time consuming, which is for all criminal defendants. Let me be very clear. But the absurdity of this, though, is just underscored by how serious all of this can be for people. Adam, thank you so much. I don't want to be so rude to take up more of your time, but I do want to urge everybody to please subscribe and follow Adam Klasfeld at All Rise News. This conversation he and I just had has been reduced to incredibly succinct and really powerful writing that Adam does so well. But when he and I get the chance to hang out, I definitely am partial to being able to do so. Adam, you're going to be back in court tomorrow. Is that right?
I am, and now we're going to hear as the day begins, cross-examination of the arresting agent, and maybe he'll have to answer some questions like, "Why didn't you arrest the defendant when he walked in front of you in that public hallway?" So we'll see what happens.
Ooh, bated breath. I am going to be waiting to hear. I'll be following your posts on social media. Adam, can you remind people where they can do that, where they can follow you on social, read your real-time reporting, etc.? Can you let them know?
Thank you so much, Katie. They can find me here on Substack at All Rise News. You can also, if you're watching from somewhere other than Substack, you can visit www.allrisenews.com. And if you subscribe there, you'll get alerts when Katie and I have our next conversations, when I have my next courtroom dispatch, and whenever anything else that I'm covering live in the courtroom, wherever I happen to be in the United States to cover it.
Thank you, Adam. And listen, if you have the luxury of time, maybe we can connect again tomorrow and just do another debrief of day 2, because I definitely am going to have my own curiosities on it. I won't hold you to it, but I know everybody who's tuning in right now would love to actually know what is happening. But in the meantime, I am so grateful, as always, for your friendship, for your expertise, and for taking the time to be with us here at Substack. Thank you so much to everybody. And if you aren't subscribing and following me, please do so. And also at YouTube at Katie Phang News. I break down these types of cases with the help of people like Adam Klasfeld, whose reporting I rely upon to make sure that it's accurate and that it has the integrity that you all deserve from independent journalism. So thanks so much for tuning in. Adam, get a bite to eat, please, my friend, and get some rest. We need you.
Thank you so much, Katie, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.